Hello, people. Thanks for watching. My name is Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie. Currently ranking and reviewing all the Frank Zappa tours. I figured for myself that there were 26 of them. And out of the 26, I am now on number 23, going towards number 1. And this is Spring Summer 1980. Interesting tour. There is very, 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 very little officially released from this tour. I'll get to that very shortly. Technically, it was 2 tours. There was a U.S. leg and a Europe leg, but there wasn't same band. Didn't really change what was being played or how it was played during that break. Unlike, say, like 77. Fall 77, Winter 78, which again is a US leg and a European leg. It's the exact same band, but the energy felt different, or certain songs were added that I think, deserves it to be its separate tour. Deserves it to be its separate tour. This, I'm just combining this as one big tour. And this is essentially the David Logeman band. A small band, and I think one of the reasons, let's start off. I like this tour. There were incredible moments from this tour. There are absolute career highlights that need to be released, that it is an absolute shame have not been released. So this tour is not a slouch. However, it has its limitations, and I think because of its limitations, as a tour, it's not one you want to go back and listen to over and over again, though sadly, or not sadly, there were a lot of really good sounding tapes from this tour. They're just not things one wants to listen to over and over again. And there also exists a really, really good high quality video on YouTube of one of the European shows from this tour that is kind of a must-see. And I'll talk about that in a little while too. But anyways, this is who's in the band. You got Frank on guitar and vocals. Tommy Mars is still around from keyboards and vocals. He's been there since fall 77. Arthur Barrow is still on bass. He has been there since fall 78. And Mars and Barrow pretty much do the load of the work. They carry the melody in a lot of the songs. They provide almost all the support. They are kind of the meat of all of the tunes, and that is one of the reasons why I think repeated listens of shows, it kind of just gets tiring because there's not a lot of variety. And Tommy Mars's keyboard sound, as the main leading instrument on which you lay the bed of lettuce on which you lay everything else, it kind of just gets a little too much after a while. At least it does to my ears. And Barrow, rhythmic, like in the songs, the actual written part of the songs, and in very specific songs, like Jumbo, Go Away, he is ridiculously amazing. But in a lot of the solos, he tends to get a little repetitive, and he's definitely not as interesting or as adventurous or as chaotic as he is in 79 or Fall 80. And that may have to do with the fact that the drummer, we'll get to the drummer last, but that may have something to do with the drummer. You have Ike Willis is still on guitar and vocals. And for the very first time, he is now joined with Ray White on guitar and vocals, who was there, left in Winter 77 and is now back. So you have the two of them. So the vocals on this tour are excellent, and there are some really good vocal moments. Ike and Ray both play guitar, but they're not really doing what a Steve Vai would do, or a Mike Keneally would do, or bringing that sort of nasty, dirty, sleazy slide energy that Danny Wally would bring. Their rhythmic support is not as good as sort of the rhythm playing that Frank would bring in like 75 and 76 and the early 70s. They're kind of there just to do like the meat and bones type stuff. And so Frank doesn't rely on them a lot to carry like a lot of these songs. So again, it goes on to Barrow and Mars. But the drummer is David Logeman. And you can pretty much, any discussion of this tour, Logeman eventually comes up. Not because he's a bad drummer, it's just he's not Vinnie Colaiuta, who was there in 79 and would follow in Fall 80. He's not Wackerman, he's not Bozio, he's David Logeman. David Logeman would leave Frank's band to go make a career in TV and soap opera drumming or something like that. It was a TV sort of studio musician gig, so that's where he went after this, and apparently did a pretty good job. I think he maybe won an Emmy or two or something, or was involved in Emmy winning stuff. I don't know. Anyways, but the problem with Logeman, I think more than anything, is he doesn't just seem to vibe with Frank, or Frank just doesn't really seem to like his style. And so, yes, there are amazing solos on here, and Frank's guitar playing is on the continuum of like 78, 79, all the way to where he would peak in 80. This is not a dip or a drop off. It's more of a sustaining the greatness while not having a drummer that's as challenging as Kaliuda, who would push you to greater heights as he did in 79 and would do in Fall 80. And if you find a Watermelon in Easter Hay, I think that's one of those like obvious songs where Logoman has a heaviness and a clunkiness about him, I think, that's just not a Frank drumming style or something that doesn't mesh well in with Frank. And so I think if I have a complaint about this band, why it is number 23 and not higher, it is because Logoman's drumming kind of seems like a hindrance at certain points. The band sound is a little bit thin because Mars and Barrow are carrying the like at the hiccups. And there's a lot of You Are What You Is material presented here for the very first time. And because it's for the very first time, it's not as developed as it would be. You don't have Steve Vai's like sort of stunt guitar flourishes. You don't have quite all the vocal nuances, and like the You Are What You Is da na 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 is that for 4 minutes, and the end part is not Ray going off, like where they would sing a line and then Ray does that crazy gymnastic vocal improv, or not improv, but Frank gave him the lines, but it feels like he's sort of riffing on it. That's not there yet. So it really is just that riff. Do you know what you are? You know, and at the end, Ray's not doing those cool things. So you're just like, okay, we get it, Frank. We get it. And so what you get in this tour, and it's kind of one of the same problems I had with the other tours, is you're kind of just waiting around for the guitar solos. The guitar solo vehicles, I think, are more interesting than they are in 84, which is why this is higher than 84. And the guitar playing is incredible. But again, a lot of times you're either waiting around for the solos to come, or there are stretches of time where you just get all of these non-solo songs back to back to back to back to back, and it really just feels like they're kind of going through the motions. So yeah. So there were about 70 shows during the course of the U.S. and Europe leg. Frank, I think there were 47 different shows. Each show was about 2 hours long. Frank soloed about 7 times. These are the songs he would solo in during these shows. You got some any downers, which were definitely not the 76 monsters, but were still some pretty heavy tinged ones. Bamboozled by Love, just your straight blues thing. I don't like the song. Black Napkins, Chunga's Revenge, City of Tiny Lights, the U.S. leg of City of Tiny Lights. It had the same vamp from 79, which you can hear on like Any Way the Wind Blows boot, which was one of the Beat the Boots. But then the European tour is, voila, the debut of the Carlos Santana Secret Chord Progression. I may one day make a video of all the Carlos Santana references that Frank makes, because there's quite a lot in his career. 84, he kind of jammed on a couple Santana songs. In this tour, She's Not There, the zombie song, which Santana recently and contemporarily released as a single, back in like, I think in 80, right before this tour, or maybe in late 79 is when Santana released it. Frank jams on that heavy. Like, it's like a full on, if you're a Fish fan and you know how Fish just goes into songs and they like play like the entire verse chorus like instrumentally, Frank does that with She's Not There on a number of If Only She Wouldas, and it's fantastic. And just as there would be sort of secret words in 84 and 88, She's Not There becomes a secret sort of musical word, like Fish would do, where they reference a song over and over. And Frank will quote She's Not There over and over and over, and even drops little secret words, She's Not There. So Frank gets obsessed with that. And then again, when they go to Europe, you get the Carlos Santana Secret Chord Progression debuting in City of Tiny Lights. So that's pretty interesting. Cosmic Debris, pretty straightforward. The Deathless Horsey was played, I think, only once, but it wasn't even in that pseudo reggae style. It had a slightly different vamp, but it's still pretty good. Easy Meat, the US leg of Easy Meat has probably the worst solo vamp of any song ever. It is plotting. It makes Logoman sound horrible, even worse than apparently the discussions about him. It is horrible. It just ruins Easy Meat. doesn't give Frank any room to sort of breathe in solo. But by the time they get to Europe, they've gone to that more expansive, open, just kind of free-floating solo style. So Frank realized the error of his ways and went in the complete opposite direction and just didn't even have a vamp. He's like, Logan, man, you just drop out and just kind of fiddle around. He used to Cut the Grass, was played twice with lyrics. If Only She Woulda, which is probably, this needs to be released somehow. Why there is not a live official version of this out there, I do not know. Sounds amazing. Arthur Barrow would do a keyboard solo. Oh, that is another thing about the sound. There were times when Barrow wasn't even playing bass. He was playing second keyboard. And so there was no sort of bottom there supporting the band. A couple songs. But he does give it a really good cheesy sort of Ray Manzarek Doors keyboard solo, and If Only She Woulda. And then Frank gives some of his best solos ever in this song. And this is where that She's Not There quote comes in. Pretty good. What else you get? You get Illinois Anima Bandit, which is a song I just long ago got tired of. Outside Now, which was a pretty common song. Ike's vocals, Willis, just amazing. Pick Me, I'm Clean. This one went through a number of different sort of, the tempo changed, got faster, got slower. Frank messed around with it a lot. I think the Tinseltown Rebellion version, if I'm not mistaken, is a cut of like two of the different types of versions melded together. But not from this band, but from the Fall 80 band. This Frank seemed like he was never really happy with where this song landed. And was kind of always just tweaking it a little bit. Pound for a Brown, which is a pretty straightforward jam. Suicide Chump, which is I Just Hate. Treacherous Cretins popped up. Watermelon and Easter Hay. Again, this is where Logoman sort of kind of pops out. And Zooto Lures was played once. During this, towards the end of the U.S. leg, that's when he used to cut the grass in towards like the 2/3 part of the main set, like towards the end, but not the very end. Zooto Lures popped up in the same slot. So Frank started really to experiment and bring in more guitar-oriented songs. And his soloing is great. Like there is a continuum from where he was in 77 to 78, and then 79, it was just magical with those Inca Roads. And I hear he's still on that level. He's kind of plateauing, I think, just because Kaliuta's not there. And then 80, he would start to rise again and head towards that 82 peak. And then after 82, it would be, no real more peaks, kind of downhill. These are the only places you can actually hear this band. The first half of Easy Meat on Tinseltown Rebellion, which is a studio version of that, is this band. Fine Girl is not, because Bob Harris is also on keyboards. Bob Harris would join them for the Fall 80 tour. So a lot of You Are What You is David Logeman on drums, but it's not this band because Steve Vai's doing stunt guitar, or Bob Harris is on vocals, or Denny Wally, or you have all these other guest musicians. The only other musical song that's just this band is Dumb All Over from You Are What You That's just this band. You have two live songs from this band. You Didn't Try to Call Me from You Can't Do That on Stage Volume 1, and Love of My Life Mud Club version from Stage 4. Those are both from this band. And the You Didn't Try to Call Me sounds amazing. It is a great, great sounding version of that song. So there exists recordings of this band. After preparing this, I'm like, let our next release be. Let's release 200 Motels, and then let the next release be a complete show, or maybe two shows and a 4-disc box set from this tour, because it needs to be done. This error needs to be amended. I don't know. I don't know what the problem is or why it isn't, because, okay, so let's go to Boots right now. Evidence for why there needs to be a box set. 6/11/80. It's on YouTube. You can also check it out. This is pretty much the first set, or the first part of the main set. This is typical of almost all the shows. You open up with an amazing Chunga's Revenge. Keep It Greasy is really hyper and fast. Barrow is going crazy. Outside Now, beautiful with Ike Willis's vocals. City of Tiny Lights, great jam. Pound for Brown, Mars and Frank at a solo. Cosmic Debris, pretty straightforward. You Didn't Try to Call Me. Ain't Got No Heart, Love of My Life. That's where sort of Ray and them step up, and the vocal part gets better. But it all starts to wear thin at this point, because then You Are What You is kind of a slog. Easy Meat. is pretty good. It sounds great, and it's kind of this. It's neat to hear it right there between that and Mud Club. It's sort of a much needed breath of fresh air in that run. But then you go back into Mud Club, Heavenly Bank Account, Suicide Chump, Jumbo Go Away is great. Arthur Barrow has a little sort of bass solo freak out in the middle of it. That's fantastic. And then If Only She Woulda is a must here. And then the rest of that show is like your typical solos, that the typical like encore end of show numbers that you would hear on like Buffalo 80. Joe's, you get like Drafted Again is after that, and then you just get a bunch of like Stick It Out, the Miss Pinky, all those Joe's Garage, that kind of run of just kind of just really short songs that Frank just kind of runs through every single encore. But anyways, that is a really good show to check out on YouTube. Paris, June 11th, a really good video. Some other shows that are really good from there. You have an early Vancouver show, March 26, 1980. Don't Eat the Yellow Snow was played. Just Don't Eat the Yellow Snow was played on this tour. They didn't go into the rest of it. They just played that song before they went into other stuff. So again, this is a typical early show. You can see just a lot of back-to-back-to-back You Are What You Is stuff. And so it's interesting to hear, but again, it's not something you want to revisit, but this is a really good sounding show. Another really good show that popped up is Florida. This is one of the performances when He Used to Cut the Grass popped in. There's a Lucille Has Messed My Mind Up. You know, there are some interesting sort of one-off or two-off performances that Frank throws in throughout the entire tour. And so those are always interesting. And really, there's a lot of just, those are probably the ones I think I would recommend the most. Like just, I don't know, anything you find out there that it's kind of hard to recommend things because they all are, the set lists are highly similar. The guitar playing is consistent throughout. I'm not really sure there are very many bad shows. A lot of really, really good sounding shows. But again, it's just kind of the same thing over and over again. Other sort of highlights from this tour. Any Downers. Oh, Any Downers has this interesting little musical section after the solo that kind of sounds like that City of Tiny Lights from Shake Your Booty. That really weird fast-paced thing before they go back into the vocals. That didn't make the You Are What You Is cut, so that's pretty interesting to hear. City of Tiny Lights, again, has the Carlos Santana secret chord progression introduced, but it does not yet have Ray doing his crazy vocal gymnastics at the end. We just get a pretty straightforward, post-solo ending. Conehead doesn't have a guitar solo on this one. It's pretty much just a straight Conehead. Dong Work for Yuta pops up once. Don't Eat the Yellow Snow was an opener. He Used to Cut the Grass. Oh, In France. The lyrics of In France get their debut on this tour. I want to say it is in July, yes. In July on the Europe tour. However, the words are sung. Apparently they're read off a piece of paper. I think Frank shows the paper on the tape. Mentions that they're rehearsing it. And it's to the tune of the song Cars, Gary Newman's Do Cars, that song. So yeah, and I'm pretty sure if you go on YouTube, you can search In France Cars, Zappa. I think there is an audio version of it on there. So anyways, yeah. Yeah. So apparently it appeared twice, according to my notes. Apparently on June 22nd and July 2nd. This is what I wrote. During Frank's City of Tiny Lights solo on June 22nd, Barrow quotes Cars briefly in the midst of his solo. So later during Mud Club, Barrow returns to the Cars bass line, which prompts Frank to make up some verses about Frank. Then 2 weeks later, we get the full vocals done to Cars. So you can thank Barrow for that, apparently. So that is on June 22nd is when there is a tape of that out there. Not a very good sounding tape, but that exists out there. And then the actual debut of Cars is on July 2nd. Jumbo Go Away sounds amazing on this tour. That is a very fun song. Let's Move to Cleveland appears, I think, once, maybe twice. No guitar solo. Tommy Mars does a solo. Little Green Rosetta gets sort of a mention and a Miss Pinky during an encore once. Let's see, what else? They did a cover of the song Night Owl, which was like a 50s R&B sort of doo-wop number. That popped up a number of times. Kind of foreshadowing what would happen later on, and like when Frank would start doing Mary Lou and the Man from Utopia and bring back all those stuff for to highlight Ray and Ike's vocal abilities, and then Bobby Martin. Pick Me I'm Clean, again, is awesome. Not as monstrous as it would be by Fall 80, but still really good. Stick It Out is still there in the encores. Watermelon and Easter Hay appears a lot of times and is really good. And Zooto Lures appears once, and it sounds like it hasn't been rehearsed, but it's still Zooto Lures, so it's fun to see. So yeah, that's a lot to say about my number 23 tour, but yeah, trying to be complete. Interesting tour, but I highly, highly recommend you check out the Paris June 11th, 1980 video. Just some absolutely amazing guitar playing. And if you start to get bored when the You Are What You Is material starts popping up, stick around for the If Only She Woulda, because the jam on that with the If She's Not There is just one of Frank's best. I highly recommend. So ZFT, if you're watching this, let's get us a spring summer box set, please, please, please. 1980, this deserves to be released. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think about this tour, if you have tapes or if you watch that video, or any of your thoughts, things I missed or messed up and all that kind of stuff. Comment below, I appreciate it. Subscribe so more people can stumble across Zappa and make their lives a better thing. It's cold here in Texas again, if you haven't noticed. And it's like 9 o'clock and the sun's just getting up. So we need to fall back, people. We need to fall back. All right, peace, take care, all that stuff. Bye.